Hey there, Sparkrock community. We're excited to introduce some new features that are included in Sparkrock HRP version 5.2.34. There's an employee work calendar, productivity enhancements related to termination dates, and a new tool for administrators that can save hours of time cleaning up unwanted entitlement entries. So in this video, we're going to show the new employee work calendar, demonstrate editing the termination date, show overriding the termination date, and we're going to demo the new pay input cleanup tool. Let's get started. In the past, it could be difficult to get a comprehensive at-a-glance view of an employee's work schedule and absences. I mean, the information was there, but you had to hunt around. Introducing the employee work calendar. It's a way to streamline the management of employee schedules and time-related data. And it allows you to efficiently maintain absence accounts for employees, ensuring accurate tracking and updates. We're going to look at it from the HR administrator standpoint, and then show how an employee can see their own work calendar. To start with, we need to assign a work calendar to an employee. So on the HR tab, we're going to navigate to Absence, Employee Information, Accounts and Individual Calendar, and we'll search up this employee and select Modify from the menu. We have our absence groups and codes, but in this case, we're interested in this Assign Work Calendar tab. We have our locations and positions here. We have the active one selected. And if we scroll down, we have this calendar view to assign a work calendar. So we're going to select an as of date, let's say the end of 2024, assign it based on the calendar. You have the option to assign it on a rotating basis as well. We'll just do it on the calendar. And now you can enter the number of work hours that they're assigned to work each day. So they don't work Sunday. Let's say they work 7 hours a day, Monday to Thursday. And let's say they have a shortened day, 4.5 hours on Friday, and they don't work on Saturday. So I've gone ahead and filled that out for the rest of the weeks. And we're going to select Assign Work Calendar. And now it's assigned. So now that the work calendar is assigned, let's see how we can view it. As an HR administrator, you can view an employee's work calendar by going to the employee spotlight. So staffing, staff management. I've searched for the employee, so we'll open them up. And now we have this tab here, Work Calendar. So I'll select that. And we can see their assigned work calendar on the month. We can hover over it to view, for this particular position, their schedule hours, which is 7, and the absence hours, which is 0. And you can see this is a Wednesday, it's a 7-hour. However, if we hover over that Friday, it's 4.5 hours. I'm here viewing another employee now, and we can jump to a particular year and month. So let's say we want to look at January 2025. Select View Work Calendar. And it's a similar situation. However, you'll notice on this week, when we hover over this employee's January 21st, they had that 7-hour schedule, but they have 3.5 hours of absences. So we can see it right here on the calendar. Now back on that Assign Work Calendar screen, if we scroll down, this employee has 2 different positions. And when we select the different positions, you can see that they have 2 different work calendars set up, one for each position. So they work 5.5 hours a day in one position, and then 2 hours a day in the other position. So if we go back and look at their work calendar under Staff Management, we can see that it shows both positions color-coded with the hours per day and absence for each position, and you can hover over each position to see the details. From an employee's perspective, I'm logged into the Employee Self-Service portal, and employees can now go to Personal, select Work Calendar, and they can see their own work calendar and hover over it to see the details just the way an HR administrator can. So that's the employee work calendar. Now let's take a look at editing the termination date. Historically, the termination date field has not been editable once it was initially populated. However, sometimes there's an error or some other legitimate need. There's times where you might need to correct or update this date. Now, in the past, fixing it has involved logging a support ticket or doing some sort of workaround with rehiring and re-terminating, which isn't ideal because it leaves a bunch of inaccurate records, and we all know that HR and payroll situations are often really time sensitive. So now, as long as someone has the correct rights, the termination date is editable. So we'll go to Edit. Right now it's set to August 22nd. However, let's say we needed to correct it to be August 26th. Set the termination code, and we'll save it. Now, all data gets logged to the audit table, so there's a record of the edit with before and after values, so you keep a record if this has changed for some reason. It can be a real time saver when you're hiring somebody to set the end date to the end of the school calendar year. It's a very common thing. However, what happens if you need to terminate the employee for whatever reason? Historically, the termination date was restricted to a date greater or equal to the start and end date. Well, now we've introduced the ability to override the termination date if the user enters a termination date greater than equal to the original start date, the position start and end date, the assignment start and end date, the leave start and end dates, the salary start and end dates for an employee, or the allowance start and end dates for an employee. So if any of those are true, you're able to override it. So let's take a look at it in action. So we have our end date of this position of June 26, 2026. If we go to the termination tab, let's say we want to terminate it much earlier, so we'll go into edit mode. Select the termination date of, say, August 29th, so very early. We'll set our termination code, and we'll select Save. So this new pop-up will appear. It says, employee has future position end date that extends beyond the selected termination date. Do we want to override this setting? So if you select no, nothing will happen. However, we can select yes. And now we've successfully terminated the employee even though they had a future end date to that position. All these changes are saved in the audit tables if a history is needed and you need to go see what happened. The final enhancement is mainly there to help new Sparkrock HRP customers, but it's good to know it's there if you need it. There's some situations, especially during an implementation project, where you need to run the entitlement process in order to authorize the records required to run a pay. The problem is this leaves behind a bunch of unwanted entitlement records, and historically the solution to this is to manually reverse every single record, something no one has time for, not to mention it clutters things up and impacts payroll audits and downstream integrations. Well, introducing the Pay Input Cleanup utility. Easily clean up unwanted pay input entitlements securely, efficiently, and without risk. It's a tool that'll safely remove those unwanted entitlements, ensuring no active payroll runs are impacted, and making sure that changes are logged for audit. Only users with the appropriate rights can even see the tool, and to that end, under the Operation Access Editor, under System Tools, there's a new checkbox, Pay Input Cleanup Utility. That has to be checked in order for somebody to have access to this tool. So assuming your user has that checkbox checked, you can go to System, Tools, and there's the Pay Input Cleanup Utility. Select the employee group and the pay number, select Preview, and you can see those unwanted entitlements. Select the Delete Records button, confirm, and your records are removed with just a few clicks. And I'm not exaggerating by saying this will save some customers hours of time. And again, all these operations are logged in the audit tables. That wraps up our look at the new features in Sparkrock HRP version 5.2.34. With the employee work calendar, you now have a clear, at-a-glance view of schedules and absences. The termination date enhancements give you more control and flexibility while still keeping everything tracked in audit logs. And with the Pay Input Cleanup utility, administrators can save hours of manual work, keeping payroll accurate and efficient. All these improvements are designed with one goal in mind, making your HR and payroll processes smoother, faster, and more productive. We can't wait for you to try out these new features in your day-to-day work. Let us know what you think. Your feedback is what helps us continue to improve Sparkrock HRP. Thanks so much for watching.